By 300 BCE, the Mauryan Empire under Chandragupta governed an estimated 50 million people across millions of square kilometers, requiring an expansive, centralized state apparatus. Yet our understanding of this state rests on a paradox. The evidence for this massive administration survives through three separate sources, each carrying its own specific distortions. The first is the internal blueprint, the Arthashastra. Attributed to the royal advisor Kautilya, this Sanskrit treatise outlines the theoretical requirements for a stable, prosperous kingdom. The second consists of the external observations of Megasthenes, a Greek diplomat whose work, the Indica, survives only through citations and paraphrases by later authors like Strabo. The third is found in the military outcomes of the Seleucid-Mauryan War, which defined the geopolitical boundaries of the empire in the northwest. Historians cannot read these sources literally. To find the empirical reality of the Mauryan state, we have to filter out the philosophical ideals of the texts and the political propaganda of the authors. Reconstructing this era requires us to deconstruct these biased accounts, using their friction to locate the administrative machine beneath the myths. To understand the internal mechanics of the empire, we start with Kautilya. He argued that artha, or wealth, was the necessary engine for public welfare. He viewed a prosperous population not just as a moral goal, but as the foundation of state security. In this model, stability was a product of institutional rigor. The state functioned through a systematic bureaucracy that operated independently of the king's personal virtues. This required managing massive revenue sources. The state tracked income from land, mines, and trade duties, directing it all toward a central treasury. Kautilya assigned the collection of these funds to a single official, the Samaharta. To prevent corruption, the Arthashastra established a bureaucratic firewall immediately after the collection stage. The custody and disbursement of that wealth were the exclusive responsibility of a different official, the Sanidata, or treasurer. This structural separation of powers created an internal check within the early state. By ensuring the same official could not control both the inflow and outflow of funds, Kautilya essentially designed a system that curtailed localized embezzlement. This systematic domestic taxation engine provided the consistent funding necessary to maintain the massive Mauryan military. The Arthashastra illustrates how this specific audit culture allowed the state to extract and manage the revenue needed to maintain its imperial reach. That same administration looked different to an outside observer. Megasthenes arrived at the Mauryan capital of Pataliputra around 305 BCE as an envoy for the Seleucids. He successfully corroborates the existence of a disciplined society with state-owned industries and low crime, providing external proof of the order Kautilya described. Yet Megasthenes' account is shaped by a fundamental misreading of the social architecture he was observing. While the standard four-tier Indian Varna system is shown on the left, Megasthenes recorded the seven-class system we see on the right. He divided the population into philosophers, husbandmen, herders, craftsmen, military, superiors, and counselors. His mistake was one of categorization. He observed occupational guilds and state personnel, conflating these professional groups with the rigid, endogamous castes of the region. The origin of this seven-part list likely traces back to Herodotus, who had used nearly identical classifications to describe Egypt centuries earlier. This reflects a common Greek filter, where classical authors projected existing Hellenistic frameworks onto foreign territories to make them intelligible to a Greek audience. Megasthenes also engaged in an intellectual competition with Ptolemaic Egypt. By describing India through this lens, he attempted to prove it surpassed Egypt's social organization. He even integrated Greek mythology, claiming that Dionysus had originally civilized India to suggest a shared heritage with the Greek world. His ultimate goal was to present India as an idealized philosophical kingdom, superior to the other great civilizations of the era. For historians, the Indica must be systematically deconstructed to separate these Greek political agendas from Megasthenes' genuine empirical observations. Beyond social theories and external observations, we can look to the hard geopolitical evidence of the northwestern frontier. Following a period of conflict and negotiation between Chandragupta and Seleucus I Nicator, the two empires established a formal peace. The first term of the Treaty of the Indus was a dynastic marriage alliance, which stabilized the border for generations. In a massive military exchange, Chandragupta gifted Seleucus 500 war elephants. Seleucus used these elephants to win the Battle of Ipsus in the west, demonstrating the global impact of Mauryan military resources. In return, Seleucus ceded control of his eastern satrapies to Chandragupta. A minimalist interpretation limits the ceded territory to the lands directly bordering the Indus River, but a maximalist model extends Mauryan control deep into eastern Afghanistan, covering modern-day Herat. This historiographical debate centers on exactly where the state held administrative control versus where it merely exercised influence. The archaeological evidence for deep control is significant. The presence of Ashokan edicts in Greek and Aramaic found in Kandahar points to a sustained Mauryan bureaucratic presence. This treaty proves the effective administration described by Kautilya and Megasthenes could project undeniable power onto the global stage. The Mauryan Empire at its peak required a state apparatus capable of managing massive populations and securing vast territorial concessions. Kautilya's Arthashastra provides the internal logic, the blueprint for how that imperial machine was designed to function. Megasthenes' Indica provides an external check, revealing how this reality appeared to a foreign, biased witness. And the Seleucid Treaty offers the empirical record of its impressive military and diplomatic reach. A synthetic view of the Mauryan state only emerges when we triangulate these three sources, using the friction between them to rebuild the past.